We're going to watch Harry Sapporta and Hayden Talbot discussing the hour service. I wasn't going to put this up for a while. I'm still working on the last board meeting. I really didn't want to do this meeting yet until I finished that. However, there were a couple of things in the meeting I wanted to see, which was Lane Jensen, number one. And then we got our first look at Bob Nelson Crony. But at the request of Henry Beasley, who I have a great deal of respect for as a true activist, I'm putting up this clip of Talbot and Sapporta. I'm really tired of listening to Sapporta. I mean, he's getting on my nerves to the point where I don't want to watch him anymore. Okay, if you would watch this stuff as much and as closely as I do, you would understand this is really getting irritating, because I have to keep listening to this bullshit coming out of these people's mouths, and it gets tiring. I'm tired of listening to it. They tire me out with this. Anyway, let's hear it. I'll comment as there's things to comment about.
Good morning. What I'd like to do this morning is just give you a very, very brief overview of our efforts to improve fatigue at TriMet, to manage it, but also keep in mind that the problem is not unique to TriMet. It's not unique to public transportation. It in fact really affects all industries.
It's true that it affects all industries, but in the case of transportation, you're having people's lives in your hands, okay? It doesn't matter if some guy is working retail to exhaustion, because what can happen? In the case of bus transportation, for some reason, working your drivers to exhaustion is acceptable. And if you look at the tour bus industry, there's been some very high-profile disasters there. Multiple deaths, and all of it is a result of fatigue. And they're not regulated. See, TriMet, by the way, is trying to get out of the Fair Wage Act based on them saying they are interstate carrier, which nobody can figure out how they can claim that. But apparently there's some obscure statute that who knows how they can figure it out. But the point, I'm not trying to get into that right now, but the point is the tour bus industry drivers are not regulated by the Fair Wage Act and hours and all that, because they go over straight state lines. It's bizarre. And as a result of that lack of regulation, we've had dozens and dozens of deaths this year at tour bus crashes. And for some reason, the United States government doesn't seem to consider bus riders and drivers worthy of protections. So he's right on one level. On the other level, just because it's legal doesn't make it ethical, and this has always been the problem with TriMet. Just because it's legal doesn't make it right.
I've been working with the Institutes of Behavior Resources to begin the development of a fatigue management plan. And fatigue is really a very complex issue.
Let me interject here. So Harry's working with whoever they are, fatigue, whatever, who cares? But Mr. Big Shot there is working with them to develop a fatigue management system. However, Mr. Big Shot, Sapporta, has no idea what it's like to be an operator. He's never done it. He doesn't. How can you actually seriously say you can regulate an industry when you don't have any idea what it's like to be an employee in that industry? It's absolutely absurd.
It requires several strategies. And I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of what that is, just really a listing of it. And it really is more than just hours of service limitations. And Hayden will talk about the hours of limitations work that has been accomplished to date. But what we're doing is actually evaluating the overtime policies, secondary employment, our rest facilities, recuperative breaks, rest breaks for operators.
Recuperative breaks. One place where TriMet falls down on about half of its runs. There are runs that actually have proper schedules and proper breaks, but there are a lot of runs that don't have proper schedules and completely have no breaks. TriMet's got an F there. Okay, he's talking out both sides of his mouth here, which is what they do.
Mechanics, fatigue and alertness training, we offer that today, but we're looking at, is there a way to improve this? Accident reporting and analysis, medical evaluations, and principally aimed at sleep disorders. Again, we do evaluations, but The firm that I'm working with also has quite a bit of experience in that particular area.
Sleep deprivation, I'm not sure how they're going to determine that. I, for one, never went to their doctor for my 2-year physical. I always went to my own doctor. I paid out of my own pocket for it. I didn't trust their doctor. I don't trust anything that's related to them. I never went to their doctor because you don't know what that guy could do. I mean, a lot of people never had a problem with Dr. Harris. I didn't trust their doctor, so I didn't go to him. I'm not going to tell you what. I'm not going to see. They pry into every aspect of your personal life, and I'm not going to give them that. When I was working, I wasn't going to give them that knowledge. My personal life is my personal life, and you guys don't have a right to know anything about it.
And then lastly, something called fatigue modeling of the sleep and work patterns. So later on, what we will do is begin to survey the workforce to see what are those work patterns, what are those sleep patterns, and hopefully through the education process, we can make them better informed. But today's briefing is really principally aimed at the hours of service limitations, and Hayden's here to speak to that.
Good morning. Good morning. A bit of background. On February 4th of 2013, TriNet and the ATU reached an interim hours of service agreement for bus operators. This agreement requires 9 hours off for the...
I need to interject here that the ATU made this agreement without input from the members. It was a Bruce Hansen special. It's John Hunt used to do this all the time. He would agree to these things without ever bringing it to the union membership. And another one of these questionable union management practices that I openly criticize is the allowing of the union leaders to make decisions for us without asking us. I mean, when it comes to certain administrative things, I can understand that, but when it comes to the details of operators' lives, they should ask us. I'm no longer working there, but I understand there was a lot of pissed off union members about this.
The extra board operators and 10 hours off for regular operators between each day's assignment.
Well, right there you have the obvious absurdity of the whole thing. Extra board operators only need 9 hours off, but regular operators need 10 hours off. What are they saying with that? There's two types of human beings or something? That's patently absurd right there. It's just ridiculous.
A modified form of the agreement was implemented for the spring sign-up, but full implementation of the agreement began June 3rd in conjunction with the summer sign-up. We've also added into our FY14 budget 11 more extra board operators, which we will add as we can to help us comply with the requirements of the agreement. So what has been the impact of this new agreement? For the month of June, out of 16,666 work assignments, there were 16 records of HOS violations. 10 of these violations were the result of operators being delayed back to the garage for various reasons and submitting time slips, which are processed later, that resulted in violations of the minimum time off before their next day's assignment. Another 3 violations were related to a 1 to 2 minute programming error, which when we discovered it was easily fixable, we were able to correct it and eliminate those. 1 violation was related to an operator assisting with an equipment trade. 2 violations were actual assignment errors, so an assignment that was given out that just was not in compliance by several minutes. 8 of the 16 violations were 5 minutes or less. The greatest violation was 19 minutes, which did allow for 9 hours and 41 minutes of rest. So for the month of July, out of 18,479 work assignments, there was a total of 11 records of HOS violations. 10 of these violations were the result of operators returning late to the garage and submitting time slips. 1 violation was related to assisting with a vehicle transfer. 3 of the violations involved extra board operators who are required to have 9 hours off, who were late to the garage, returned and turned in time slips, resulting in violations of 8 hours and 54 minutes, so they were 6 minutes under the threshold. Another employee was only 5 minutes under, and a third employee was 9 minutes under the threshold. 8 of the above-mentioned violations involved full-time operators required to have 10 hours off. 3 of the 8 were violations of 6 minutes or less. The most extreme violation, 43 minutes, due to being late to the garage, still allowed 9 hours and 17 minutes off between the assignments. So the main point with this list of detail is that the majority of violations have been an average of about 10 minutes over the standard. So they are violations, but in terms of the spirit of HOS, we don't have any egregious violations where someone only had 5 hours off or something of that nature. For the month of August, so far, as of August 12th, barring any unforeseen time slips that may be turned in late, we have had 0 hours of service violations. And since July 20th, we've only had 1 violation. So we're showing a very steady decrease in these violations. How is it that management is monitoring and following up on these? The Executive Director of Operations, as well as Harry and the management team, receive regular updates on violations of the interim policy. Direct management oversight is provided from both our manager of workforce utilization, he oversees the station agents who make out the work, and our garage managers who work directly with the operators. For each violation, there's follow-up with the station agents if we determine that they made an error. Operators are also followed up with because they have a responsibility for the violation as well. Operators are required to inform the station agents when they are aware that their work assignment or that some unforeseen delay back to the garage might affect their hours of service compliance for the next day's assignment. So final conclusions and observations. The implementation of the agreement is moving us steadily towards full compliance. We have completed 2 operator signups in which operators have been required to make selections of work that are in compliance with the new policy, and they're adjusting to the impact of the agreement. Certainly we have some employees that are not as happy with it as the way things worked before, but overall I think there's an understanding that this is the direction we're going and that ultimately it will work out to everybody's satisfaction. There's an ongoing labor management series of meetings that we continue to refine implementation of the policy. Work in this area by TriMet and ATU teams has been constructive and collaborative, and I've been involved with those. I would like to say that it's been an overall positive experience.